Hope? Are there issues and problems in your life that you want to break away from and feel like you can't? Do you wonder, how can I be free from these issues that have destroyed my life? Well, my friend, I have the answer. Bible Way Hibner Memorial Church of God in Christ presents Chain Breakers, this and every Sunday at 9 a.m. here on WHYL.
From the L.B. Smith Ford Lincoln Studios, Oldies 102.9 is WHYL Carlisle.
Welcome to the Real Estate Radio Guys, your weekly source for all things real estate. We're your hosts, real estate broker John Rainville and your mortgage expert Kingsley Harmer discuss everything from mortgage rates to home staging for foreclosures and everything in between that affect the daily real estate market. Real people, real questions, real answers. Today's show is brought to you by www.pagoloan.com, your source for new mortgage loans. NMLS number 1018. EnviroQuest, trusted for home inspections and radon mitigation in Central PA for over 25 years. And brokersrealty.com, the easiest way to search for real estate in your hometown. Now, on to the show.
Good morning. Welcome. It's the Real Estate Radio Guys. I'm John Rainville, Pennsylvania, New York, and Maryland real estate broker. About 30 years of experience. And this morning, as usual, my co-host is
Kingsley Harmer with GSF Mortgage, pagoloan.com for pre-approvals, or call 717-200-4800.
So, dude, what the heck's going on with this weather, man? I'm you know what? I think we need to petition the federal government to change our calendar. I think we should April should just be rerun again. Or we should just turn the clock back and make this March.
You know, I was actually thinking the same thing, because it's weird. You know how, years ago, it was, in October, we were starting to get snowfall. It was cold. Now it seems like you go mid-November until you're actually getting fall weather. Yeah. It just seems like the calendar has shifted.
Snowfall in April. I mean, I think they're still calling for snow. A little bit.
Are we still supposed to get some today? I thought they nixed the whole.
No, but I think on Monday, I think we're still supposed to get some.
Really?
Yeah. What a crazy world. Yeah. But so today we've got an interesting show, and one of our favorite, or the favorite home inspector is Mr. John Stas from EnviroQuest Inspections. We're going to be talking with John a little bit more in depth about, a little bit more of his background, how you become a home inspector. But there have been a lot of changes in that industry, so we're going to be speaking about that. Kingsley, later in the show, hopefully he's going to talk to you a little bit more about where the rates are, where we see things going. The real estate market is still just chugging along really good. We still need more inventory. And, so if you're thinking about selling, you got to reach out to a realtor or one of us.
I'm actually kind of a little afraid about the market.
What are you afraid about?
Well, let's go back about 10 years, right?
No. Stop. I'll go back to selling shoes.
I'm just telling you, these home prices seemed like they've jumped up 10 to 20% in the last year. And because of the lack of inventory, which from what I see, and this is just what I'm envisioning and what I'm predicting, we are basically pricing out of the market all of the first-time home buyers, because the homes that were 75, 100, maybe even 125 grand,
I don't even see any.
They're not
right
there.
No, I don't.
You
see
can't
them.
even do a search and find any properties unless it's like a 2-bedroom townhome at $120,000.
Yeah,
and that's, with a nice radius. So
what's a radius?
Length of,
So far, from the distance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's crazy. I mean, how many clients do you have that are, looking for a first-time home buyer, and they can't even find a house in the market?
Well, I can tell you this. With my realtors, we've told them they've got to be extremely aggressive right now, so they have to be looking and showing their clients for sale by owners. They have to be searching Craigslist, places like that. They have to be calling old expireds, and you have to have anything in your arsenal right now in order to try and find a property.
It's actually just, I find it scary, because to me it almost mimics our last little debacle about how prices have been just jumped out of proportion. More so in other states. But even here, I just find it scary that a first-time home buyer cannot find anything under $150,000 in this area.
Oh, I know. It's getting tough. It's getting tough. And tomorrow, Kingsley and I will be at the Best Balls in the Berg.
I think they have different awards. I think they're giving out tomorrow.
Hot balls, cold balls,
salty balls, all kinds of cool stuff. But it is for a great cause. I think it's for lymphoma,
Leukemia and Lymphoma Society up there in the Poconos.
So if you're in the area or listening on Facebook, please stop by.
We'll put information up after our show on our site.
Great cause.
Yep. So we're going to be needing more inventory. Any other good ideas? Folks, if you're out there and you're thinking about selling, now's the time. We really
houses are just going ridiculous. So I mean, if you didn't think you were going to be able to get money for your home or a certain amount, I all but guarantee, take a second look. You may be surprised as far as what you can walk away with and step up to if you're looking to upgrade.
So now, and I forgot about this. I meant to mention this earlier. You put out an article yesterday about rates. So I'm going to put that up on our site later today. What are they talking about with that?
Rates have, as you have seen, have gone up on anticipation of a lot of different indices coming out, including, the unemployment rate, et cetera. And it's baffling that interest rates have been fighting back, regardless of what's been reported in these indices. So rates have actually just against, natural will, have actually ticked back down to the point where we're kind of back.
Almost where we were a few months ago?
Close to it.
Close down around 4 1/8.
Oh, no, we're not that low. But I mean, we're still looking at 4.5 to 4 3/4.
That's good.
But that's down like 3/8 from what we were a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, because the stock market's been crazy. I mean, these days were, I think it was almost a $600 fall on Friday.
Right, and interest rates are more tied to the Treasury bonds.
Right.
But they're supposed to have inverse relationships.
Right.
And they just don't, which is the weird thing. I mean, it's almost like they're both just kind of floating along in a parallel universe. So rates are staying great. The market's good.
Need inventory.
We need inventory.
There are homes out there to buy, though, folks. Don't get it wrong.
It's just that depends on the price range.
You're not going to have as much of a selection as what we had in the past, but there are homes we can help you find a home.
Right.
So, good morning, John. How are you doing, buddy?
Good morning. Doing well. How are you guys doing?
Awesome. So we're excited to have you on today. So this is John Stiles from EnviroQuest Inspections. John, can you give us a little bit of your background as a home inspector? I mean, you didn't just wake up one morning and become Chuck in a truck, right?
Sure. No, it wasn't that I had my sights set on becoming a home inspector. I went to college. I was always interested in real estate and got into construction in high school, working on construction sites. And after school, had a degree in finance, started working for an environmental consulting company. And I remember when I started working there, I overheard one of the owners being upset that they sent a guy to training and he failed the test at the training. So they sent me to training for, I think it was for asbestos microscopy or something like that. So I was like, I'm going to study, ace the test. So whenever they sent me to training, I tried to, just do as best as I could on the test. So I ended up they sent me to a lot of training. And later on, I met a guy that had a home inspection company, and they did radon mitigation home inspections, and he had wanted to get into the underground storage tank business.
So hold on. Did you pass the test?
Yeah, that's what I knew they wanted me to pass the test because I overheard them talking about being upset they spent money to send a guy to training. So whenever they sent me to training, I like aced the test. Because, being a college student, that's one thing you learn is how to take tests. So they kept sending me to training because they knew I would pass the test, and that's another notch on their belt for certifications for the company. Because they got a guy that's got this license, they got a guy that's got that license. So I was that guy that they kept sending to training, which worked out well. Later on down the road, I met a guy that had a home inspection company, and he wanted somebody with an underground storage tank license, which I had. Back in the late 80s when they were taking out the underground storage tanks everywhere. So
you remind me of a guy that I had as an office manager when I was living out in Los Angeles. And he did not want to leave school. He kept going to school. And he would get a degree in this, a degree in that. He got his appraiser's license. He had his loan officer license. He has his real estate license. And I just don't think he ever wanted to leave school. But at the end of the day, here he is today. He's actually very successful out in California. And it sounds like you. I mean, you've got all these tests and all this background, and it kind of sounds like you walked into the right situation with all of your knowledge and licenses.
For me, it was survival mode. Okay, I got a finance degree, and I'm working for an environmental consulting company. So it was
John,
survival
what
mode.
year
How do I
did you-
survive here?
John, what year did you get into the home inspection business?
It was, at the environmental consulting company, we did commercial inspections. So their phase 1 audits. I'm sure you've heard. You probably deal with a lot of those. But so that was about 1989, 1990, right around there. So I started in the commercial end of it, but then, as I mentioned, the guy that I met that had his own company that did home inspections and radon systems, that was mostly residential. So it was when I started working at that company that I switched over to the residential side.
And how long were you with them?
Well, that company, they got so busy with the underground storage tanks. The owner came to me, I was in my early 20s. He said, "John, we're so busy with all this. I need to make you manager of everything. The home inspections, the radon systems, hiring and firing." So he made me the manager of that company.
Wow.
And he put the company up for sale. And, I was in talks with him to possibly, I was a young kid, didn't have money, but he said, you find an investor and I'll finance 2/3 of it. So I was in talks with him, but it actually got sold to somebody else because it fetched way more money than he had anticipated. Somebody gave him a real high offer for the company, so it got sold. And the new owner took over my job, basically, and there was some shake-up there, and then that's when I started EnviroQuest.
So, John, so it was really like, about 1980 or so, late 80s when home inspection started, or we were maybe into the early 90s when that started to really come into vogue?
Yeah, that's when it really started to take off, but it actually, in the mid-'70s, the American Society of Home Inspectors was formed. And, before that, you buy a house, get a relative or somebody who's a contractor, kick the tires a little, look over the home. But what they found was, let's say you get a roofer to look at your house. He's going to know a lot about the roof, but he may not know so much about furniture. So the American Society of Home Inspectors was formed, and they realized that they needed to have a standard for training home inspectors where they had a little bit of knowledge and not too specialized in each area. However, it is kind of specialized, but they need to have a broad base of knowledge in a bunch of different disciplines. So that was one of their things that, in the founding of the American Society of Home Inspectors, they said, okay, we're at the house for 3 hours, 2.5 hours. There's only so many things you can look at. So given that fact, it's very important what the home inspector looks at. So they came up with the ASHI standard operating procedure, which dictates, basically what's looked at, what's not looked at.
So I'm curious, John, being a realtor, because we're talking the 70s that they started this, John?
Yeah, the American Society of Home Inspectors was chartered sometime in the mid-70s.
Okay. So when did, the real estate commissions start bringing around seller's disclosures?
That'd be a question for John. I'm not even sure when that was. John?
That's a question for you. You're a realtor. When did that happen?
I'm not a realtor.
Yeah, that happened around. That happened in the 90s. We started to see. And that's gotten evolved over the years. They keep. In Pennsylvania here, they keep updating it. Maryland keeps updating theirs. Our disclosures have actually gotten better, a little bit more complete. And when they first started, it was really rather vague. It was about a page and a half of stuff that they asked. So,
and that was more or less because of lawsuits of stuff that wasn't disclosed or trying to have been hidden, almost like a malice type of sale.
Well, probably, yeah. The age of consumerism, where they were, trying to protect consumers. But when I first got in the business, basically the only inspection really wasn't an inspection; it was the appraisal. We weren't having, properties inspected.
Well, nowadays, that's why I try and figure out, the timeline here. This obviously started in the 70s, but when did inspections actually start to take off?
In the 90s.
Really? So
in the 90s, yeah.
So you started this obviously way back in the day, John. How many inspections were you doing back then?
Yeah, like John said, it's really taken off in the 90s. When I first started, we had a form that we filled out, and there wasn't a lot of training required at the time. It was just find another inspector and get the training. Then it was sometime in the late 90s when it started. It started to be a requirement, like early 2000, late 90s, when it started to be a requirement that a home inspector join a national organization such as American Society of Home Inspectors. And then it was pretty much the way things are done. You go to that organization, you get their training. They started requiring continuing education so that the inspectors are being trained on an annual basis, a certain number of hours of training.
So before that, did you do the inspections on sticky notes or something, or?
They were pretty basic compared to what you got now.
Well, today you get a book,
right? Well, you got a book, but it wasn't no photos. Tell them, John, how it started out, where you've seen that report evolve, just the report.
Yeah, the structure of the report actually, the standard operating procedure and the things that are filled out, that hasn't changed a whole lot. What's changed is the format. So it was a paper form. Then I remember in 1992, I made a Word document, and I had a little computer, and I would take it on site and fill it out. But then you're, emailing somebody this lengthy Word document, and then, I guess sometime shortly after that, the photo size became compact enough that you could start putting photos into the form, and it's evolved from there. So at first it was a Word document. Then it actually became easier because the file was so big. It became easier to use one of those books, like Kingsley referred to. And so it was a triplicate form with a book, and then sometimes we give a file with photos in it separately. So, now most of the inspection systems are using a link to a cloud-based system. So the inspector does the inspection, uploads the report and the photos up to a cloud-based system, then that makes it easy to send the client and the real estate agent and everybody a link to the report. So it's really gotten streamlined as far as the size of the files and the ease at which photos can be uploaded, and the amount of pixels and clarity in the photos.
I've seen nowadays I've seen an inspector go out while they were on the premises, and they had an iPad or something to that effect that would actually take the photos while they were there, upload the stuff while they were there, and the report was done even before the inspection was over.
John, so that brings up a really great topic there. What have you seen as far as like your equipment? From when you started in the day, you probably started basically really seriously with like a ladder, maybe, and a tool belt and a flashlight, right?
Yeah. So I've always felt that for access you need a couple different ladders. A smaller ladder for inside, an extension ladder to get up onto the roof. And, there have always been, although they've been upgraded, there's always been, moisture meters for taking moisture readings. They've evolved and the technology's gotten better. The cameras have really evolved a lot. Probably the biggest improvement as far as customer service and, making it better for everybody is the quality of photos.
That is true.
Cameras, even, the iPhone camera. I mean, even 5 years ago, my photos, I would go back and put arrows and circles. But now my iPhone camera, I use the iPhone 10 or X. The camera is so good that you don't even really need to use. You can zoom in, take a photo of just what you need. You don't need circles around so much anymore.
So, John, what's some of the other equipment? Because last home inspection I was on with one of your guys, I mean, they had a whole bunch of different gadgets with them. I mean, it was like go Gadget. It wasn't,
You mean like stilts?
Well, they had all this. They had different things than a typical homeowner has.
Yeah, we some of the biggest things we use are like an outlet tester. So we use an outlet tester to check outlets.
So you have wet fingers?
Yeah, that works well too. It's really easy to tell the difference between the
finger test to see if it's live.
Yeah. Yeah, just don't touch your chest. So, grab that wire. And, so some of the other things would be like a heat gun. Testing the temperatures for the heat output and the AC output and we use a heat gun actually on electrical components as well. See if anything's getting overheated in the panel.
And so what is that heat gun? How does that heat gun work? What's it do?
It's got a laser pointer, so you can see where you're pointing in. And then it basically just gives you a digital readout of the temperature. So it makes it nice because you can aim it at something and then take a photo so that the photo illustrates.
They actually work, too. Because they use those at the doctor's office now to read your temperature. They don't even put it in their mouth. They just shine a laser on your forehead.
Yeah, they work great. The prices come down a lot, too. So.
And then there's some other type of meter I've seen you guys use when you think there's like a wet spot and stuff. What's that?
Yeah, we use moisture meters. There's two categories of those. There's the invasive and the surface moisture meters. We can tell, if we find a stain on a wall or on a ceiling or a roof or whatever, we can put a moisture meter on it to try to tell whether it's an old leak that may have been previously repaired or see if it's still active.
I know.
And that's what you learn as a home inspector. Don't put your heat gun on the client. They don't like it too much.
Wait, you put the moisture gun on the client?
No, the heat gun.
All right, just check.
And I know another large component, and I think, back in the 90s, I remember, that was too when, this whole radon thing, started to become to the forefront. But has that technology changed at all? I mean, I sort of seem to remember they always put these, charcoal canisters or something around, but you guys have other equipment besides that now, right?
Sure, yeah, there's the electronic radon testing equipment. We still use the charcoal canisters. With any type of equipment, the thing to remember with that is there's different technologies for measuring radon. It all comes back to how well is your equipment calibrated, or what's the quality of your lab. So,
you are pretty big in the radon, aren't you?
Yeah, we install a lot of radon systems. We do a lot of testing, both commercial and residential.
So when did this is supposedly colorless and odorless, right? I mean, this is like the death killer gas. When in the world did they even discover radon if you can't smell it or taste it or... when did we discover that it was a bad thing?
Are we trying to stump the home inspector? I told him we wouldn't do that.
Well, it's kind of funny you asked that. I was just talking to a client about that just a couple days ago. But a guy worked at a nuclear power plant, and it was in the mid-'80s, and he kept setting off the equipment. And they were like, well, what's this guy doing at work that he keeps setting off the equipment? So they put him through the monitoring equipment in the morning when he came to work, and he was sky high with radiation. So they're like, what's going on here? So they sent a crew to his house, and they found out his radon level of his house was like 1,500 or something. It was sky high. So that's when radon was actually in Pennsylvania here.
So it was discovered by accident almost.
Yeah, it was discovered by accident by.
Wow. I didn't realize that it actually put off like that much radiation. I mean, obviously that's a serious health issue if you're walking in and you're setting off detectors for radiation. Wow.
So, John, this is a little bit off topic, buddy, but how about on the radon systems? I know you guys have been installing them for some time. Has that technology? Has anything changed there on how you guys are mitigating that now?
Sure. Yeah. What's changed with that is that the fan technology has advanced. So before, when I initially started in the radon mitigation, there's maybe one or two fans, and now, we can drill less holes in the house and put it, instead of drilling 4 holes, we can maybe drill 1 hole and put a stronger fan. So, and plus the knowledge base of the mitigation knowledge base, there's so many more have been done, and even by our company, we keep records, and so the knowledge base of how to do the mitigation has improved greatly.
Hey, so I want to actually kind of get into the radon a little bit more, and how you go about finding out where it is. But first, we got to pay some bills, so we're going to go to a commercial break. We'll be right back.
The Real Estate Radio Guys with John Rainville and Kingsley Harmer. We'll be right back. Buying a home? Your good credit could equal 0 down. Schedule for a free consultation today at kingsley.today and get started on the path to home ownership. NMLS number 1018. Good credit should equal better mortgage rates. Schedule for a free rate quote at kingsley.today and get your lower rate. NMLS number 1810.
Listen for the Real Estate Radio Guys with everything you need to know about buying and selling real estate. Saturday mornings from 8 till 9 on Oldies 102.9 WHYL.
Are you working with a mortgage company that offers pre-approvals or just pre-qualifications? Does your mortgage company reward police, firefighters, military, teachers, and nurses with better rates and fees? How would you like to apply and be updated on the status of your loan right from your phone? Introducing GSF Mortgage Corporation, where technology and relationships make the difference. Visit pagoloan.com to apply or call 717-200-4800 for more information. NMLS number 1018.
Buying or selling a home? For professional home inspection, call EnviroQuest of Harrisburg. Their certified home inspectors will conduct a thorough inspection and provide a detailed report with many pictures. They'll explain the findings. Do you have elevated radon levels in your house? Call EnviroQuest. They have fixed over 10,000 homes over the last 25 years. For a professional home inspection or radon mitigation, call EnviroQuest at 233-6144, 233-6144, or visit EnviroQuest online at evqharrisburg.com. That's evqharrisburg.com.
after the show. The Real Estate Radio Guys with John Rainville and Kingsley Harmer.
So we're back.
Yeah, so it's funny. We just got done hearing a commercial on radon. I think that's great. So
amazing how that works.
it is. It's just. I think it's just a fluke. So tell us about radon. I mean, when do people call you? Why do they call you? Is it just a test that everybody does? I mean, what's the alert?
Sure. Well, I mean, it's recommended by the EPA that all homes be tested. So, a good percentage of the calls we get are from real estate transfers. So people are buying a home, they want to get it tested for radon, or they've had it tested and it's elevated. So we get a call from either the agent or the homeowner, the buyer, or the seller to our radon level is such and such. It's over 4. We need an estimate to repair it.
So do you do that with an actual, home inspection, or is that like an additional test?
It's with a home inspection. It's optional, so it's an additional cost. But we frequently do. The big 3 are the home inspection, radon test, and the wood destroying insect.
Okay. So I'm just curious though, what would instigate somebody to say, John, you know what, let me get this radon test? I mean, what's the signs that you're looking for, or is it just something that some people do because they just want it tested?
Yeah, it's just because people want to test it. The DEP does outreach where they have advertisements, hey, test your home. The EPA has outreach, and, people, we hear a lot of people say, oh, my neighbor tested their house and it was elevated, so they told me I should test my house, and I did, and now it's elevated. I need to do something about it. I hear that all the time.
So back in the day, I can remember in the 90s, when there were a lot of corporate relocations and transfers, and, we had like Ross Perot's companies transferring people in and out, and AMP and that. And I can remember then when I think the relocation companies started to insist that when we were putting them on the market, before we put them on the market, they wanted to have a radon test done, and then they wanted to have it mitigated below that level of 4. And it was mandated in their listing agreements that they would do with us.
Really?
Back then, yeah.
So are there specific areas that are target areas, if you will, to say, hey, look, if you buy a home here, you're more likely to have radon than somewhere else in the state? Or
Sure. Well, there's hot spots that we find, but that's after we test. We do a lot of testing, so. And, I think the EPA has a radon map on their site that you can find that sort of shows the concentrations. Just for example, like the Mount Joy area.
Areas, it sounds like. So, in other words, you could find out if you're in a risky area. I mean, to say that I need to get it tested. But I guess one way or another, it's probably worth getting tested.
Yeah, the EPA recommends that all homes be tested because you can have a house next to a house, one house that has a high level. The house right next door may, not have a high level. So the only way to know is to test.
And is that, I mean, from your background, obviously, as an inspector, is there any sort of correlation as to how the houses were built originally, whether or not there's more radon in a house?
As a general rule, okay, so the radon comes from the soil gas. So as the technology for building, things like vapor barriers under the basement slab, added insulation such as closed cell foam under the basement floor. So basically, the better sealed up the basement is with, things that are vapor locking, such as plastics under the slab or the foams, that's going to reduce the amount of radon that's coming in. So older homes in general are a little more, open. There's more places where soil gas can get into the home. So as a general rule, as the homes are being tightened up, the radon is less, but all homes should be tested. Just because you have a newer home doesn't mean you shouldn't test it. So we do find, even ones where there's no, open crawl space or open sump, that are testing elevated. So on the flip side of that, as people tighten up their homes for energy savings, better windows, more insulation in the shell of the home, that's concentrating the radon in the home too, because there's not as much dilution that occurs from wind and outside air that's entering the home.
So theoretically, because we're talking about a gas, gas can find its way through a peephole, or smaller, a pinhole.
A peephole?
A peephole, pinhole, peephole. All right.
It can find it through a peephole, but not a pinhole. Now, but even masonry block is porous. Radon can go. Almost any building product has a permeability rating where a certain amount of vapor can travel through it.
So, in general, then, let's say, for example, we've talked about SIP homes on our show. They're for the most part, pretty efficient, airtight. But if gases can travel through even porous rock, basically what you're saying is once it's in the house, it's much harder to escape because it's an efficient home. So you're better off having the system in place to make sure the gases aren't building.
Yeah, or at least testing. Yeah, like you say, when you say system, the ideal methodology for dealing with it is to put a passive system that goes from below the basement slab up through the roof, and then after the home is constructed, to do a test, and if it needs it, then you can activate that system by installing a fan.
So, John, now on the wood infestation inspections, have you seen much change come about in that? Is that still just basically, an eyes-on thing, or is there any technology now that you can use to find those little critters?
Not really any technology. It's still, like you said, an eyes-on thing. So,
we don't have any tricorders or thermal imaging things.
No moisture detectors, or look, we've got heat senses in the wood, kind of like little
trails.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I've heard of training dogs to be able to hear the insect activity.
Really?
We don't have any termite sniffing dogs, but I've heard
funny. So they would be bug sniffing dogs.
Yeah, or not sniffing, but I think they actually hear the activity, or they hear the carpenter ants or the termites chewing on the wood, and they train them to spot that out.
Interesting. Dogs, training dogs to hear bugs.
It's just amazing.
So but the whole idea behind that would be that you've seen some sort of visual evidence that you might have an issue, right? You don't just bring a dog out to a house, just for the heck of it.
Yeah, pretty much. With the wood destroying insect inspections, we look for signs of for example, termites. We look for the mud tubes. We look for damage. We look for activity in the vicinity of the home, next to the foundation on the exterior. And then if we find that, then we recommend treatment.
Interesting. So hopefully, those of you that are out there that are, think you might have bugs and a dog comes out to start sniffing, let's hope that they, don't find anything else that they're sniffing for.
You know what, though, I think...
Yeah, they might be cross-trained.
We skipped over it a little bit, though. So, John, how hard is it to become a home inspector, in case Kingsley wants to add that to his business card, too?
Sure, yeah. It takes a lot of training and what I'll call mentoring. So when we get people that call us up, we refer them to the American Society of Home Inspectors website. They have training programs, and they have the standard operating procedures. And so if somebody wanted to become a home inspector, the basic outline of what they would need to do is to take some sort of a training program, and then they need to get mentored up with a home inspector where they can go on inspections and, do a bunch of inspections with somebody else, a mentor to get the experience under their belt to pass the National Home Inspection Exam.
See, I'm already out on this one, John, because if I can't go on the internet and print out like a license, by paying a fee, it's over my head.
I think you can become an ordained minister that way.
A friend of mine actually did that. He had a certificate.
Yeah, I think you can. You can get a service dog that way that you can take on airplanes.
Really? Yeah. Huh. So, John, now do your guys, when on the home inspections, I heard that some companies don't even get up on the roofs anymore. They're actually looking down from the driveway with binoculars. Is that what you guys do, or you guys get up on the roof?
We try to get on the roof, and sometimes you run into conditions where it's too slippery, it's too steep to walk, or if it's wet or icy. But it's if you can, it's good to get up on the roof. Even if with drones, like a drone can't check the seals on the shingles, so there are some limitations to the drone technology. I still, the old-fashioned way of walking the roof is preferable. So
you don't use drones yet?
We don't use drones yet, but we have a drone. But we're looking into it, the licensing and whatnot. But we still try to get up on the roofs now. If it is inaccessible, too high, too steep, too slippery, binoculars from the ground.
Well, now
a lot with those, but there's no substitute for getting up on there.
If I get to play with drones, it might be worth it.
Oh yeah.
That's actually not a bad idea.
Your interest there, Kingsley.
Yes, having those drones is not a bad idea because they have all different sizes now too. I think
sizes of what?
The drones.
Oh yeah.
Like certain ones you actually have to register with. The what is it?
I think most of them now you have to register.
No, I think it's only over a certain size. Like you can get the little.
Yeah, and it's almost like the first step of getting your pilot's license. The test you take, and then so you take the test, and then if you're using a drone for commercial use, there is a good bit of regulation to comply with.
Yeah, because you're up in airspace. They can go pretty high, some of those bigger ones.
So that would let you inspect things like the roof, the shingles, the gutters, the chimneys. I could see where if you couldn't get up on there, where that could be a real plus.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So there's a lot of that's when I go to the home inspection conventions every year. You see a lot of the drone guys there. They have a booth, so it's really coming into the home inspection field.
Well, we use it in real estate, for photos. Why not use it for inspections?
Right.
You can get up pretty close to them, and I'm assuming that the cameras on those are evolving just as well as the phones are.
Right. Very.
Oh
good.
Yeah.
So if you maybe see some, something from down below, even with binoculars, like you said, some people, if they don't get up, it might be at least cause to send one of those up to get a closer look if you can't walk on it.
Right.
Obviously, John says it's much better to walk. Plus, I would imagine walking on the roof would give you a better idea if there's any soft wood up there, which would give you signs of maybe moisture or something in the attic area as well.
Yeah, we usually home inspector tip, look in the attic first. That way you can see if there's a piece of plywood missing before you fall through the shingles.
John, is there anything special that you guys do with for a vacant house maybe when you're doing an inspection that's different than when somebody's living there?
Not really. It's more important with a vacant house, especially for a foreclosure or something like that, to make sure the gas and the water, the utilities are on, so that we can test the water in the furnace and whatnot.
Now,
sometimes that becomes difficult, as you know.
With a vacant house, I'm assuming, because actually I was just out at one yesterday, after they're vacant for some time, you're going to get critters and bugs and stuff like that, kind of moving their way in because there's no activity, right?
Yeah, we find that when a house is sitting empty, you get a lot of more plumbing leaks, rubber gaskets and wax rings on toilets dry out. You get more leakage, and like you said, there's more chance for critters or things like that to get into the home.
Interesting. So, yeah, I mean, you've been doing this for a while, obviously. I'm sure you've seen a lot of stuff, good, bad, ugly. And now, obviously, we've got all the fun tools like, moisture detectors and
Thermal readers
and gadgets. Kind of makes it maybe a little bit, I don't necessarily want to say easier,
drones,
but definitely more invasive, I guess. Into the walls,
Yeah.
you can kind of see more.
Yeah, I think it's a better value. As the technology progresses, it's a better value for the client because we're getting them better photos. The home inspection software, that's evolved. Like our software, it'll automatically put engineering diagrams. Like, let's say, we have a malfunction on the water heater. It'll automatically, when we choose that defect, it'll put an engineering diagram that shows the water heater and how it works and what this defect entails. And it'll insert that right into the inspection. So that type of technology is making it the communication to the client and the real estate agent, anybody that may be looking at the report or needs to know, it makes it a lot better.
All right. Well, hey, I certainly learned a lot. How about you, John?
Yeah, it was good, but because the technology's just changed. What they John, I'm going to ask one final wrap up question for you, buddy.
Sure.
Is typical time, let's say for like a 2,000 square foot colonial 2-story for a home inspection?
I'd say 2.5 to 3 hours. Now, it's kind of funny that you asked that because I have like an internal clock when I do a home inspection. I almost always pace myself so that I get done in about 2.5 hours. Sometimes it does go well over, but it's kind of funny because I get involved in the inspection. I'm not looking at my watch, and then I'm wrapping up and I look and it's like, 2.5 hours. It's kind of funny that it works out that way. But 2.5, 3 hours.
And then afterwards, I mean, as a client, I mean, you again, I know we spoke about what you get, but you get basically an online cloud-based booklet, if you will, or PDF of everything that's going on with that house, right? From pretty much top to bottom.
Yeah. The reporting systems are divided. Almost every company, every home inspector, it'll be divided up into sections such as structure, exterior, and then the format we use, it has a home maintenance encyclopedia, which is like a 400-page document attached at the rear. In addition to the report's interactive, so it has links. So we have a type of building material, and then you can hit that link, and it'll give you 4 or 5 pages as to how it's made, what the characteristics of it are. So it's kind of an interactive, cloud-based home inspection system.
So basically, you are at this point when you get a report, you're not just getting a sticky note from back in the 70s. I mean, you're getting an extensive report that could give you hours and hours, if not days, of reading material to know everything about your home. So at the end of the day, a report card of just about all the systems in your home, just to know where you're at or what your home's looking like.
Yeah, exactly. And just say, for example, you have a gas furnace that's new when you buy your house. 5 years down the road, you're having an issue with it. You could go to that report, and it'll give you the inner workings of a gas furnace. Back in the encyclopedia section of the report, you can use it for ongoing maintenance or ongoing knowledge for the components of your home.
And obviously, a home is a big investment for anybody. So having this report card, if you will, is probably a good idea to have, just to know, where your house is at and what issues you may have in the near future.
One of the other things I've noticed is that by having these more detailed photos, higher pixel rates, and pinpointing things, after the home inspection, if a specialist, let's say a carpenter, needs to come in or a plumber needs to come in to fix something, the way the reports are now, the real estate agent, whoever's ordering that service, can just send the report to the plumber, and he knows exactly what he needs to take out there, as opposed to a handwritten report where now the plumber has to call the inspector to find out what's going on.
Interesting. Well, it certainly has evolved and you've obviously seen it from the beginning up till today. It's definitely a worthwhile investment, and it's not expensive by any means to know what your house is doing or what issues it may have in the future. John, as always, it was a pleasure having you on today. I know I've learned something. Hopefully our listeners were listening and learned something. If you'd like a free or a report on your home, a report card, if you will, what's the best number to call you on to get that scheduled up?
Yeah, thanks for having me. And the best number is 717-233-6144.
And John is online at EnviroQuestEVQHarrisburg.com.
We have that up on our site.
And on Facebook as well.
Thanks, John. You have a great weekend, buddy.
Hey, all right, you do the same. Thanks, guys.
So, coming from a, real estate broker's viewpoint, some of the people, like a home inspector, your insurance agent, your loan officer, and your realtor really are integral parts that should be on your team, so to speak, when you're buying a property. And they do all work together to try and make sure that the end result is exactly what you're looking for. But it's interesting when you think about it, because a lot of people say to me, well, a home inspection, I don't know, that's like $300 and some. It's so expensive. When you think about it, for the amount of time, the experience, what you get for it, the value, the value is there. You're getting a professional that's driven out to the property, gotten and then let's say 2.5, 3 hours. So it's really a very nominal investment in knowing what's going on with that property.
And besides that, when you're talking about buying a home, you get an inspection shortly after you go under contract.
Correct.
And as a realtor, you want to, I don't want to say insist, but it certainly is the best course of action to get an inspection. Because what if there's a major system that is all but imminently on the verge of failure?
Oh, well, yeah, just think about a furnace, even a water heater anymore. I had to replace my water heater the other year, and, I remember when they were like $200.
Right. So as a realtor then, once you get your inspection, let's say, for example, it comes back and it says, hey, look, your heater's only firing on, 2 cylinders, as opposed to all 8. What do you do as a realtor?
What do I do as a realtor?
Yeah, well, after the inspection comes back and, you have a faulty furnace.
We just got one on a house down in Maryland. Actually came in last night. I was reviewing it this morning. As a good buyer's agent, you should thoroughly review it. Anything that you see as suspect, you want to make sure that you're marking up on the report, in my humble opinion, and bringing to your buyer's attention. The other nice thing with a good report like what John's company does is, and the digital photos and that, is, sometimes showing is better than telling. So the old reports before, back in the day when they first started out, we didn't have the photographs. So it's one thing to tell somebody their chimney's bad. It's another one where you've got several photographs that show them from the top how it's crumbling or falling apart. Because now the seller says, oh, wow, I didn't know that. Well, no, they didn't know that. And it makes the negotiations for any repairs or
I was going to say, now,
much easier.
At that point, I'm buying a house with the, intention that everything's in good working order, right?
Correct.
So do I go back, or do I have the ability or authority to renegotiate because I've got a roof that's going to cost me $10,000 that I wasn't counting on when I originally put the offer in?
It actually absolutely can be, what sometimes is termed the second bite of the apple. Out there in California, a lot of times it's a little bit different than Pennsylvania. In California, it seems like a lot of times they will offer full price in a heartbeat on the house. Okay, and then they'll go for what we call a second bite of the apple after the home inspection comes in to try to negotiate, the price down. Here in central Pennsylvania, we're in a very conservative area, so our area, oh man, we're tough, man. These folks like to negotiate everything up front, and then when that home inspection comes up, they're negotiating again. And so, in my experience, things like radon, which John, Stas is extremely well versed in, when they come across radon, I mean, yes, you can ask for a system to be put on, in which, say, may cost about $1,000 on average. The seller probably didn't know that they had radon, though. And that, in my opinion, is going to benefit the new buyer. It's not going to benefit the seller. So it's how does that cost get split up. A lot of times, the buyer and seller will split it. Sometimes the seller will pay for it all. Sometimes they won't pay for anything on it, so it's all negotiable.
So now here's a question then from a standpoint, I guess, of legality. If I have an inspection done on the house and it comes back with high levels of radon, and there's no radon system in the home, and obviously this is a health concern. I don't want to live in a home with radon levels that high. So if I submit this to the seller and say, look, I'll continue to buy your home, but I want you to put a radon system in. And the seller refuses because it's going to cost him $1,000 and he just doesn't want, spend the money. If the buyer at this point has the right to back out of that deal, correct?
A home sale is a fluid process. And when you have things like that, both parties always have the same three rights. They can either accept what either one is proposing, they can counter what either one is proposing, or they can reject it. But for example, let's just say that there were some repairs called for and the seller doesn't want to make them. The way our contract is written, and the actual buyer has the right to be able to have those repairs done at their expense should they still want the house. So everything's sort of fluid. It does make up for new negotiating. There are set timelines, what we call important dates, that need to be met in order to keep the contract, high and tight and valid.
So a seller refuses the proposed changes to the contract, right? The repairs.
Correct.
And the buyer at this point says, you know what? It's too costly. I can't go through with this, right? Is there any obligation to the seller from that point now that they know that this issue has been disclosed?
Well, if the sale would fall apart, and the buyer would walk, from that point on to be above board, they should be disclosing that. They should adjust their seller's property disclosure to reflect any things that they've found out now are evident. Okay, because it is of their knowledge.
So a good selling realtor would obviously inform the sellers of this, going into this, saying that, you're most likely going to have to disclose this now that you know.
Not most likely you do.
So then at this point, a good selling agent would try to negotiate to make the deal on the table work.
I would.
Okay, and that's good information.
Yeah, I would, definitely.
So it was definitely a good show today.
Absolutely. And remember, folks, Kingsley and I are going to be up there in Stroudsburg tomorrow at the Cinder Inn.
We are going to be
2 to 4.
Enjoying some balls, yes?
Yep.
The best balls in the burg. And I
can't wait to see who's got the best balls in the burg.
Are they big? Are they small? Are they bite-sized? What are we talking
Well,
here?
they're supposed to be like 1 inchers, buddy.
Okay, all right. So
I know that's relative, right? 1 inch to somebody and 6 inches to another is a whole different story.
Depends on what they're made of, too, I suppose. So please come up and join us. It's a great cause, lymphoma, and
we'll put a link up on our site, and we're going to be giving out extra rewards up there if somebody decides to make a donation to them and then use Brokers Realty Services and GSF Mortgage Services up there.
Yep. So please stop by. Otherwise, hopefully you all enjoyed the show. Until next week.
I almost forgot. Real people.
Real answers.
Real thinking.
That'll work.
Real balls.
It is balls. See you next week.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Real Estate Radio Guys with John Rainville and Kingsley Harmer. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit pagoloan.com, brokersrealty.com, and facebook.com/Real Estate Radio Guy. If you enjoyed the episode, please rate and review, and we'll catch you next time on the Real Estate Radio Guys.
The greatest classic hits play on Oldies 102.9. WHYL Carlisle.
WHYL.
You're listening to the Morning Sunshine on Oldies 102.9 WHYL.